I'll be back. Alright. Hello there, beautiful internet people. I'm Nicholas R. Cicada, coming here from the review desk, and today I figured it's high time I reviewed Terminator: Dark Fate, the 6th installment in the Terminator franchise.
I'll be back. I'll be back.
I'm not really sure why I wanted to go see this movie. I think it was because Arnold Schwarzenegger's in it, and I can't pass up anything with Arnold Schwarzenegger in it because he is just the most adorable little beefy hunk of man meat out there. And he's one of the dying breed. You don't see too many movies with him, or Sylvester Stallone, or Robert De Niro, or Al Pacino, or Dustin Hoff these days. So I figure, the same way I went to go see Rambo 5, not because I necessarily thought it was that good, but, just because it's got Sylvester Stallone. He's a good actor. I figure I gotta go see his Terminator. Well, luckily, I was pleasantly surprised, because this is actually probably one of the best 6th installments in any series ever. If Watch Mojo sees this, add that to your list. This is probably one of the best 6th installments ever. And I'm not kidding around. This one it was so good. So, as Ralph the Movie Maker pointed out in his review of Terminator Genisys, the timeline has just gotten too effed up at this point. You've got the original, with the interesting time loop where John Connor sends Kyle Reese back to the 80s to be his own father, or not his own father, but his best friend is his father. Which, that's just like a really neat time loop. Then you've got Terminator 2, where, the humans program a good Terminator to go back and save John Connor from the bad Terminator. And I don't like Terminator 2 as much. And then after that, Terminators 3 through 5 were just a big cluster F. What's going on with them? I remember I saw Terminator 4 and I was so bored I didn't even see past the opening credits because it was so boring and I didn't even know what the Terminator series was about because I was 8, I guess. But beyond that, the point being, as Ralph the Movie Maker pointed out, the timeline's gotten effed up. So what does James Cameron do? He says, Terminators 3 through 5, they're out. Terminator 1, Terminator 2, they're canon. Terminator 6 is canon. And this was probably a very good choice, because as you can see, the timeline is really messy. You've got Terminator 3, which is just a rehashed try-hard version of Terminator 2. Then you've got Terminator 4, which only concerns itself with the bleak post-apocalyptic future, and there's no time travel at all, really. And then you've got Terminator 5, which takes place in alternate continuity where Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese are 20-something and completely different actors, and it's insane. Another thing Ralph Seppi Jr. pointed out is that in Terminator Genisys, they kill too many Terminators, and Terminators aren't scary if they're too easy to kill. You should have one Terminator per movie, and the humans have a hard time killing the Terminator, because that's what the Terminator's about. Luckily, Terminator 6, Dark Fate, just does all that. James Cameron knows what to do. He knows what he's doing. Except with his movie Titanic, which is probably the worst movie ever. But as for Terminator, I like Terminator. If you know me, I hate dystopian stuff, because I think that it's insane to imagine a future where humanity works against itself and against its own self-interests and just kind of destroys itself. That seems kind of implausible to me. Now, I have no problems with aliens doing this, like, say, the Martians can't live on Mars anymore, but they can't breathe oxygen, so they need to kill everyone. They need to kill all the humans. That's relatively plausible. I mean, aliens certainly don't have the same ethics we do. And in the case of Terminator, I just really like it because it's the first instance of a plot about an AI with nothing but its own self-interest in mind. It doesn't care about how pretty the Earth is going to look. All the humans are dead. All it wants to do, kill the humans. It's one objective. Skynet has always been a cool villain because it has absolutely no ethics. All that stuff is just thrown out the window. But luckily, the humans act realistically and have their own self-interests in mind. Unlike in The Hunger Games or 1984, all that garbage. The point being, I've always liked the Terminator series. And I was kind of confused the first time I watched the original about that dedication to Harlan Ellison at the end. And George Rockwell Schmidt said he thought it was I Have No Mouth, that story that everyone always uses to pretend they're all smart. And, I really wouldn't compare the Terminator to that because that one doesn't involve time travel. But then you've got the one with The Outer Limits, and George Rockwell Schmidt doesn't think that one resembles the Terminator much, but I'd say it does. And Harlan Ellison's future dialect is certainly really cool, especially for an episode of The Outer Limits. The Outer Limits never gets enough attention, and I have no idea why. I mean, anything written by Harlan Ellison obviously is going to be the best installment of a show, so that one with the future-speaking guy, that and the Six-Finger guy are probably the best installments. Pretty much everything Harlan Ellison wrote, I like. Apart from I Have No Mouth and Boy and His Dog, because it inspired Fallout, and Fallout is hot garbage. But aside from that, his catalog's pretty good. I own a copy of Shatterday, or I used to, and I've lost it along with a copy of Jon Stewart's Earth, and I feel that once I find those two books, my life will be completed, because they're just such good books, and I just bought them on a whim, and now I have no idea where they are. But yeah, Jeff Diaz 5 is pretty good. My point being, does Harlan Ellison deserve the credit for the Terminator? I mean, yeah, that episode of Outer Limits is quite a bit like Terminator. Sorta, kinda. It shows that the future soldier thing wasn't invented by James Cameron, at least. It's at least 2 decades older than that, but the point being, Terminator has always been a good series, except with 3 through 5, which were horrible. This movie does things, it does things right. It does things right. It's great to see a movie do things right, because like I said, it takes the whole movie to kill one Terminator, and that's how a Terminator is supposed to be. Now, how does this movie stack up? Well, the first scene concerns John and Sarah Connor, and they've just prevented Skynet and Judgment Day by killing a bunch of Terminators, right? Except one Terminator approaches John Connor on the beach, kills him. Sarah Connor's all sad about this. I didn't spot. I wasn't looking for this. That if it was, I think that Terminator was supposed to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger because he's from the Skynet future, not the Legion future, and he kills John Connor even though he doesn't have to because Skynet won't exist anymore. But I didn't see if he was a very well done CGI de-aged Arnold Schwarzenegger. I should have looked out for that. Or maybe all the Terminators in Skynet future don't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not sure, but the point being, well, yeah, I guess he'd have to because he grew up to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And this has always been kind of a continuity error with me as well, because how does the Terminator age? Because in Universe it said that he's metal, but then they put human flesh over the metal to give it a human appearance. But if you do that, if you put human flesh over a metal frame, it won't age, it'll just decompose. So, yeah, I'm not sure, because if the skin was artificial, it wouldn't age, but if it was real, it wouldn't age, it was just rot. Either way, you wouldn't turn from 20-year-old Arnold Schwarzenegger into 70-year-old Arnold Schwarzenegger. But I guess you gotta deal with that. And what's a Terminator movie without Arnold Schwarzenegger? I mean, if it didn't have the guy, it wouldn't be fun. Because he's Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's Arnold frickin' Schwarzenegger. Anywho, the point being, continuity errors aside and how he ages, I've always felt that Terminator 1 is really good because Arnold Schwarzenegger is evil Terminator, and he's cool as evil Terminator. But then in Terminator 2 Judgment Day, they're like, no, we need him to be the good Terminator now because kids really like Arnold Schwarzenegger and look up to him, and we can't have him be the villain. But I've always felt that that's kind of hokey. I like him when he's evil. But in this case, this Terminator seriously has some issues, and he has a development and a growth, and he has a character arc. He killed John Connor for nothing because Skynet won't exist anyway, and now he's 70, he's living with a human wife, a human child, and he's just doing his worst, and he's in a very feminine drapery business, which I thought was hilarious. Arnold in this is just the most funny you will ever see him. Like, he's lots of fun. Big meaty hunk of muscle man meat, and he still looks buff. I guess it's because he presses every day, but the point being, you can't go wrong with him. And this Terminator, unlike how he's just hired to be in Terminator 3 and 6 and 5 and whatnot, in 6, it feels like he's really got a character. This Terminator, he's a character. He's got something going on. He killed John Connor, and now he has to cope with that. And Sarah Connor is all prejudiced against him and whatnot. Now, the whole time I was watching the movie, I was thinking, like, that Terminator was the one who chased Sarah Connor and Kyle Reeves around, like he was the one from the original. But that can't be, because they crushed that one. This is just a completely different Terminator out of the fleet that was sent to kill John Connor, presumably sometime after Judgment Day. Not Judgment Day the event, Judgment Day the film. But the point being, how is Terminator... I thought that he was the one that tried to kill Sarah Connor, and that was why Sarah Connor was angry at him. But he was just a completely different one that killed John Connor. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter that they're different ones, because they're all from the same mold or whatever. But the point being that I don't know, it's not less impactful, because, one tries to kill Sarah Connor and gets crushed in Terminator 1, and then one tries to kill John Connor and succeeds, and then he can't travel back to his own time and has to, develop a personality and a conscience, and that's really cool, I guess my point being, how is Linda Hamilton in this? Absolutely frickin' stellar. And it's high time they don't just hire some 20-something bimbo to play it like they did with Terminator 5. Here's Sarah Connor looks, she's like 70 or whatever, but, she can kick ass, and she pretty much killed all the Terminators along with John Connor. But in this continuity, that's one of the best things about the Terminator franchise is the timeline was so effed up, James Cameron can just retcon it and say, let's go with an easier to follow timeline here, presumably one where Sarah Connor is still Linda Hamilton. The point being, really good, and the chemistry between her and Arnold Schwarzenegger is so good, oh my gosh, she almost killed me, And when I was walking into this movie, I thought, wow, I just want my nostalgia to be pandered to as much as possible. You might not think that's what I look for in, a long-running franchise, but really, All I ask is my nostalgia to be pandered to. Not for like Jurassic World 5, where Jeff Goldblum is only in it for 3 minutes. I don't ask for that. Arnold Schwarzenegger is in half of this. That's what you do with a long-running franchise. You don't just put him in the trailer, you give him half the movie. The first half can establish the new characters, and then the big reveal halfway through. Arnold comes out of the house and he's the term robot, and then, the point being, they said I'll be back twice in this movie. Sarah Connor said it, and that is kind of odd because she wasn't there in the original when Terminator said that, because he was in the police station, but on the other hand, it was a situation where she really would be back, so maybe it is just nostalgia pandering again. And then there's a point where Arnold Schwarzenegger said, I won't be back, because he knew he'd die, but he's not the same Terminator, so how would he know that the original Terminator had said, I'll be back? I guess in both cases, they do fit the scenario, and maybe I'll be back is like a phrase that's programmed into these Terminators, sort of like Hasta la Vista Baby. Maybe it's programmed into all of them, who knows. The point being, it pandered to my nostalgia, and that's what I enjoy. Seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger say, I won't be back, that's so depressing and sad. And my gosh, what about the main characters? This is a lot like a feminist retelling of the original Terminator, because you got robot soldier, or she's not a robot, she's an augment, as they say, and just fancy, and she can be all fast and strong and whatnot. And the point being, she's kind of the Kyle Reeves. And then you got this Mexican lady who's kind of like Sarah Connor, and then you got original Sarah Connor, and she deals, she's from the Skynet timeline, and this other future lady is from the Legion timeline. It's high time they stop putting the future of Skynet Judgment Day, it's going to be 1997, 2005, 2015, 2019. This time they say, well, it'll happen in 2040, but in a completely different timeline. Skynet's defeated, but there's still this other thing that calls itself Legion and also makes Terminators. It's basically just Skynet, but it calls itself something different. So Sarah Connor's got to stop it once more, but she's like, well, I'm used to Skynet, and the future chick is like, no, it's Legion. Just great chemistry between the three main leads, and then it's revealed at the end, or actually not the end, spoiler warning for those of you who haven't seen it, that a Mexican lady actually isn't supposed to give birth to the savior of mankind. She actually is the savior of mankind, which is a great twist that James Cameron did just perfect, because you have the original Terminator, and it does seem kind of dated, because really the only role of Sarah Connor is just to give birth to the savior of humanity, kind of like the Virgin Mary. Because let's face it, John Connor is Jesus Christ. But in this one it's explained, why that? Why can't Sarah Connor just do it? So it's established, Sarah Connor doesn't just stand around while John Connor kills all the Terminators. They're kind of a team. They kind of kill the Terminators equal. And then you got, oh my gosh, in this other future, this Mexican chick, she just is John Connor. That's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool twist. She's not supposed to give birth to John Connor. She just is. And that's even a better reveal than Neo being the one at the Matrix or whatever. Like, my gosh, that's a good twist. There's a scene about halfway through about refugees and immigrants, and I felt like I was going to be a little preachy, but actually it's pulled off surprisingly well. Is this a politically conscious movie? Sure. Was the original Terminator politically conscious? No. but does it manage to be both politically conscious and talk about migrant camps and be a fun killer robot movie? Sure. It is a killer. It does have one part that's in a migrant camp. I'm not sure how Arnold Schwarzenegger is in this. He's a Republican, although maybe it's only for his money. I understand some movie stars do that. Maybe he's reformed a little. I hear he was on a series of Netflix about vegan bodybuilders. But the point being, I mean, this is a very feminist retelling of Terminator with the part at the migrant camp, and I don't know. It felt a little out of place, but I didn't mind it. And then, the really great thing, the best part, is the villain, the new Terminator. And much like the one in Terminator 5, he can melt, or I guess it goes all the way back to Terminator 2 or 3 or whichever. But the point being, he has the melting power. And as far as I know, Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't, because he's the 001 model or whatever. And this Terminator, he can go through walls and stuff, and original Terminator can't. That never happened in Terminator the original, I don't think. So the point being, so it's kind of like a battle between the old and the new Terminator. And I knew that Arnold Schwarzenegger would not survive this ordeal, that he would be, he'd have to sacrifice himself to combat the other evil Terminator that can melt through stuff. But in the end, they end up dying together. And it's just the most sad scene because Arnold Schwarzenegger, the big hunk of muscle man meat, just pops off. He just goes offline, and he looks at Sarah Connor and he's like, "I'm sorry," and then, it's just the most sad scene. I mean, it's so sad, and just amazing, because he kills the shape-shifty Terminator, and then he's able to actually defeat the shape-shifty Terminator, but only because he's so good. So I guess at the end of it all, what did I hope to say? Just, the sci-fi industry isn't quite dead yet, because there's still good movies like Terminator 6 coming out. I never thought I'd say that. And personally, in the trailer, when it showed that Linda Hamilton would be Sarah Connor again, I didn't really care that much. But when I saw that Arnold Schwarzenegger, the big beefy muscle man, was going to be in it, I was like, oh, I'm pumped. And it's better than him being in Terminator 5, because this is just the most cool series return you can get. I think Terminator 2 is as good as Terminator 6. This movie was just wow. It was just action-packed. The sets are great. The effects are good. It only uses CGI when it needs to. Very self-aware and funny and scary, and just all the great things that a Terminator movie hasn't been for so long, because it works too hard on being pretentious and lazy and going over the same route again and again and again. So my point at the end of the day is this: if you've got a little bit of cash lying around, go and watch Terminator 6. It's going to be probably the most fun you ever had if you've seen Terminator 1. You don't need to have seen Terminator 2. I mean, I guess you kind of do, because it is canon at this point in this continuity. But just watch Terminator 1, I guess, and then watch Terminator 6. Skip 3 through 5. They're trash. This one has got Arnold, the big beefy muscle man. He's a big hunk of muscle man meat, a big chunk, a big wall of man, and I know I sound gay, but I really just admire him on how just how stacked he is. The guy is still buff at 70, and when it comes to playing a killer robot, you got loads of fun. Loads of fun. This movie is loads of fun. So yeah, I will be back. Now on a slightly more feminist, speaking of feminism and whatnot, I'd like to mention that I'm starting an online campaign which says that the famous deep web anime talked about by Mr. Wang, Go for a Punch, is in fact nothing more than a thinly veiled ripoff of College Buddies 4, the Soror Spooky Christmas Holiday. And I'm pursuing this to the bitter end. If the creator of Go for a Punch is ever revealed, all I ask is a little credit for the idea he stole from me back in 2005. Well, that just about does it. You can read more about all that exploit in the days to come, but the point being is Terminator 5, not Terminator 5, Terminator 6, the most epic? You betcha. Now, hasta la vista, baby.
I'll be back. 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 I'll be back.
The 600 series had rubber skin. We spotted them easy, but these are new. Part man, part machine. Part man, part machine. Fully armored. Very tough. Fully armored. Very tough.
I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll be back.
Terminator.
I'll be back.
Terminator.
I'll be back.
The 600 series had rubber skin. We spotted them easy, but these are new. The 600 series had rubber skin. We spotted them easy, but these are new. Flesh, skin, hair, blood. Flesh, skin, hair, blood. Terminator.
I'll be back.
Terminator.
I'll be back.
Can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity. Listen, and understand. Listen, understand.
I'll be back. I'll be back.
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 Hasta la vista, baby.